The construction industry in Australia records more insolvencies each year than any other sector. Senior industry figures are now sounding the alarm, with fears the trend will increase as builders contend with rising costs and labour shortages. Paula Gerber is a construction law expert and she joins us now from Melbourne. Paula Gerber, welcome. So why does this happen more often in the construction sector than anywhere else?
It's a very high-risk sector. When you're manufacturing, you're building the same widgets in the same factory day after day after day. But every construction project is different because you don't know what you're going to find when you start excavating, you don't know what the weather conditions are like, and you don't know that there's going to be a global pandemic raining down upon you. So it's a high-risk industry, which leads to lots of failures, unfortunately.
And is this likely to increase in raw numbers in the coming years?
I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. The supply chain issues, the labour shortages, the pricing increases, the need for housing, all of these point to a sector that is in crisis and things are likely to get worse.
And go into a bit more detail on the supply chain challenges at the moment.
Certainly. It's difficult to get things, and when it's difficult to get things, prices go up. So, for example, roof trusses, which are an essential component of every house, have increased in price by 85%, and that's if you can even get them. So you might have signed a contract to build your house in 6 months, and your roof trusses aren't going to be available for 9 months. So that's the sort of problem that we're seeing in terms of materials, and we also have a labour shortage as well.
And what's brought on that particular problem with roof trusses? Is that a pandemic thing, or why is that happening?
Well, you just had a story on Ukraine. A lot of the materials for roof trusses, the timber, comes from that part of the world. So that's having an impact. And generally just the supply chain issues that we're seeing that are affecting everything from groceries in the store to petrol at the pump are also affecting building materials.
And so what can be done to turn this around?
It's a big ship to turn around, and it's only going to happen slowly. So I think we're going to unfortunately see a lot more problems before we see things get better. But in terms of labour shortages, let's take that as an example. We see that there was a reduction in labour available when Australia closed its borders, when COVID cases hit, when vaccine mandates hit. All of those retracted the pool of potential workers. But the problem is that we're only ever looking at 50% of the population anyway, because the number of women in construction is minuscule. It's not an industry that attracts a high number of females. And if you're only recruiting from 50% of the population, then you are going to have problems getting the labour that you need.
And so what can hopeful homeowners do to protect themselves against the possibility of becoming victims when a building company collapses?
Well, the term dream home, which people often bandy about when they're building their home, really is a tagline that belongs in fairy tales. I think you need to go into a building contract with your eyes wide open, with the expectation that it's going to cost more and take longer than what was originally contracted for. And I think the way to get through this really difficult time is with good faith negotiations between the parties. Longer term, I think what we need to do is to look at how we contract for building of homes, because at the moment it's a lump sum fixed price contract. So when roof trusses go up 85%, that is all borne by the builder. So, builders can't sustain working under those conditions, so they go bankrupt. So if we can negotiate between the homeowner and the builder as to how that increased cost is going to be shared, that might help relieve some of the problems. But longer term, we need to look at our contracting models. There is a form of construction contract called cost plus, which is the builder takes the risk to deliver the project at whatever cost it is at the time, with their profit margin put on top of that. It makes it more uncertain for the homeowner, of course, because they don't have this lump sum contract. But what I would say at the moment is lump sum contracts aren't working for homeowners at all.
And what are your tips for prospective homeowners with doing research on builders and also getting insurance as part of their financial programming before actually starting a build?
Well, you certainly want to make sure that you're builder has the financial resources to complete the project. And you want to make sure, and if you can, put in place systems so that the money that you're paying to your builder is quarantined to your project. Because what can happen is a homeowner pays the deposit for their building, and that's used to pay the tradies on another project. Because cash flow in the construction industry is always very, very tight.
But how,
So
how
look
does
at
a
what
consumer,
systems,
for example, someone who's listening to this, how do they ensure that happens?
you can negotiate with your builder to say, we want a separate bank account that our money goes into and our suppliers and subcontractors get paid out of. Governments in some jurisdictions are looking at mandating this, project bank accounts. And until that happens, it's up to the owners to try and negotiate. But it's a very uneven power dynamic between a very experienced builder and a homeowner who probably this is the first and maybe the only time they're ever going to be embarking on a construction project.
Yeah, okay, really interesting to hear your... we might have to leave it there to get onto other issues. We could probably talk for ages. But yeah, really good tips from you there, Paula. Thanks so much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
Construction law expert Paula Gerber there. And there's a story on the ABC website on this subject today as well, taking a really good look at what's happening in the sector. That's done by Elise Kinsella. It's just popped up on the ABC website this morning. So if you want to look further into that story, you can see it there. It's about the 7th or 8th story down from the top of the ABC News website at the moment.